First time I've had a theme band for a talk. Good afternoon, Kyiv. How you guys doing? That's pretty lame. How are you guys doing? Are you awake? All right. That's still not that good, but we'll try. I enjoy interactive discussions, so if you feel like heckling this presentation, if you feel like things I'm saying are not correct, or if you like it, please speak up. Do you get that? Yes? Okay. We'll see. I've done this talk a bunch of times. It's a little different each time, but I'll try and keep it fresh if possible. And apologies, I'm sitting down. My knee is hurting a little bit. Let's see, I'm going to talk a little bit about the lean startup, but not that much. This Series A crunch bullshit that people tend to focus on a little bit more than necessary. A little on our strategy at 500 Startups and how we think the internet and changes are affecting the venture capital industry. Most importantly, I'll talk about marketing and distribution, which I think is the big opportunity for at least some types of tech startups. And then lastly, a little bit about the local versus global issue. So here's the quick commercial. I've been a geek, I've been an entrepreneur, I've been a marketer. I'm trying to figure out how to be a VC these days. Occasionally I invest in a few startups. 500 Startups is a venture capital fund, seed fund, and accelerator. We've done probably close to 600 companies lately. Those are all across the world, actually about 40 different countries. We've done investments here in Ukraine, TR Data, and also some Ukrainians, even though those companies are in the US. And like I mentioned, we are all over the world. Most of our team is in Northern California, but we have people in 5 other countries as well: Mexico, Brazil, India, China, and Malaysia and Southeast Asia. Okay, I'm going to try and stand up a little bit. So we fill in the gap in angels and incubators, and also in the micro VC fund category. I'll turn off this thing while I'm doing that. There's a lot of other funds that fill in various parts of that ecosystem, and in the future we'll probably see crowdfunding and a few other things also fill in parts of that ecosystem. Now, a lot of people like to push us into competition, both with other accelerators and angels and VCs, but actually we all kind of work together. And eventually, with luck, this type of ecosystem will exist all over the world. Right now, it primarily exists like this in Silicon Valley. Not all of those players are as represented in different parts of the world, but I think you'll see in the next 5 to 10 years that will start to fill in more. Okay, so the main things I want to talk about, there are probably 2 or 3 major shifts in what's been happening in the venture ecosystem and startups over the last 5 to 10 years. Capital is much less important in the first year or 2 of building startups. The cost of building startups have come down dramatically in the last decade. In the last 5 years, a lot more people are online and are reachable online via a variety of platforms. And then lastly, the emergence of incubators, accelerators in this venture ecosystem is starting to create a new way for startups to be born. And hopefully the death of the business school and the birth of better incubators will eventually rise, although there's a lot of shitty incubators out there as well. Hopefully we're not one of them. Okay, so startup efficiency and reduced capital costs have allowed us to create a lot more startups. Not all of them are good. However, the overall impact of creating more startups cheaply is good. Not all of those companies will raise follow-on capital. Growth of platforms, Facebook and Twitter in the social arena, Google, Yandex, Baidu in search, messaging platforms, video platforms, all these different ways for you to get to customers, for them to get to you. There's been 2 kind of major upheavals in the US at least, and in other parts of the world that have changed a little bit of the ecosystem. One in the 2000-2001 timeframe, one in 2008. And then a few other things have started happening where you're seeing different types of investors emerge, starting maybe about 8 to 10 years ago. Seed funds, probably first round capital is one of the very first of those, sometimes called micro VC. Incubators and accelerators around 2005 and 6, although there were earlier versions of that that Bill Gross and others started in the late 90s. And then even changes in large venture capital firms, Andreessen Horowitz and others now starting to do different things than just investing. And platforms like AngelList, and Funders Club and others that are allowing and enabling capital all over the world. So why is it interesting, or why is it important that costs of development are lower? Well, we can build things faster than ever before. We can build them cheaper than ever before. They're not always going to work. But what's really important about that is the ability for us to gather feedback quickly. So if you're familiar with the lean startup movement, a lot of that is really not measuring progress in terms of lines of code written or features that are shipped, but in understanding how customers react to your products. The internet is particularly well suited for that because we can push products and features online and get reactions from customers fairly quickly. Mobile apps as well, although in some cases the cycle time going through the app store can slow that down a little bit. But building those products has generally been cheaper and faster than ever before. Getting customers is easier and more measurable than ever before, not always cheap or free, although in general that is probably true as well. But this allows us to learn more quickly, find out more information more quickly, and generally we think have a better product development process if we are listening to our customers. If we are watching their reactions, watching their usage patterns online, we can figure out whether the products we are building suck or do not suck, whether they like them or not, and hopefully how to make them better. Just a little bit in thinking about like what the world looked like before maybe 2000 and what it's looked like after 2008 and 9. So 10, 15 years ago, you would generally require at least a couple $1 million to get off the ground. You'd probably buy some large hardware like some servers. You might have to pay for large enterprise software like Oracle Database or Sybase. You might pay for a large hosting platform or solution. The development cycles were anywhere from 12 to 24 months, might even be longer than that for packaged software. The sales cycle was also long. There weren't that many people online. In fact, really not even anywhere close to sort of the numbers that we're seeing today. And the sources of capital were extremely concentrated, usually in the US, in Boston and California, in very, very small number of circles. So a lot of those were challenges for people to build companies. You still needed several $1 million to get a company off the ground, probably before you even got to market. And you had to go like find out who was going to give you money from a very small number of sources in a very few number of areas. Let's fast forward now to maybe 10, 15 years later. Multiple services in the cloud, open source software, quick development cycles, lots more people online, lots more sources of capital, less requirements for that capital to get things off the ground, even to start selling and get things to them. Broad visibility across lots of different places. Now, not everything is perfect. Payments in particular, not easy in all places. So online financial methods and online payment methods, fairly well established in the US and Europe and several other places, but not always in developing markets. Distribution and logistics, also still challenging. So if you're doing an online ordering process and then you're shipping and fulfilling online, depending on where you're shipping to, that can be quite challenging as well. And again, sources of capital not quite widely distributed across the globe yet. There are angels and VCs almost everywhere, but not as many of them as in other parts of maybe the US and Europe. But still, it's a much, much, much better environment, more efficient environment for building startups. And generally, we are not as stupid as we used to be as entrepreneurs. We still do stupid shit, both entrepreneurs and investors, but we're starting to be a little bit smarter about our process and a little bit more capital efficient, at least on the product side. We haven't become as capital efficient on the customer acquisition and marketing side yet, but we're going to get better at that. So, a lot of people are suggesting that there are problems as a result of all these companies being built, all these incubators out there. We're creating all these little startups that are never going to get funded at Series A. Wow, isn't that a terrible thing? No fucking way. It is not a terrible thing at all. Many of those companies will not be funded, but having more companies doing innovation cheaper and more efficient than ever before is a damn good thing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. At the very least, larger VCs will have better companies to choose from with greater traction, and in general, their performance will be better, both the entrepreneurs and the VCs. There is nothing wrong with having lots of little companies be built cheaply, even if many of them fail. And in fact, the cost for those companies' failures is typically lower than a lot of people would pay for getting a business school education previously. So the cost of an MBA in the US might be anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000, possibly more at a top school. Not to say there are not valuable things to be learned from MBAs, but in general I would say that you will learn more from failing at your own startup than reading about someone else's success. Do you agree with me? Yes. Well, you're probably going to fail, so I hope you do agree with me. Now, a few of those companies won't fail. A few of them will actually start to get customers, start to make money. A fewer number of them will be able to raise capital. And again, many of them will not be able to raise capital, not such a bad thing. If we have lots of little dwarfs throwing themselves at a wall and only a few giants, that's not that bad as long as the cost of those midgets failing is not very much, and it is not very much. So in general, this Series A crunch thing, kind of bullshit. Yes, lots of companies will fail. Yes, lots of companies will not raise institutional capital, but overall, the efficient process of many small startups being created is good, and it will continue, and there is nothing wrong with that ever. Case closed. All right, so now the fact that it costs us less to build these startups and it's easier to get customers than ever before, shouldn't we be changing how we build companies and how we invest in companies as a result? Perhaps we should. And this strategy in my world is called lots of little bets, or sometimes known as Moneyball for startups. And what we believe is that the failure rates for startups are still going to be high. In many cases, even if we're good shepherds of capital, even if we're good selectors of company, 50 to 80% of our companies will fail, and fail in our books means probably not have any exit whatsoever, certainly not have an exit that would be a very large exit. Now, there's many different ways to measure the success of startups. For us as investors, we tend to measure that based on the return on capital. We could also measure it based on jobs created, number of customers who are made happy, but in general, there's a lot more failure than there is success. But given the cost of failure is much lower, what is the logical reaction? Well, fund a lot more companies. Instead of investing in one company with $5 million, which what it might have cost us 10 or 15 years ago, or 10 companies at $500,000, which is what it might cost us 5 to 7 years ago, now we can make 100 bets for $50,000 in experiments. Now, this is not going to be enough capital to grow these companies all the way to maturity, but it's enough to understand, is the product thesis, is the customer need that's being targeted, is that useful? It's enough to find out, can the team do something with that capital? Can they build a product? Can they get some customers? Can they improve the features of the product? And can they maybe even start to test for some monetization? Now, in our world, we think that probably we can identify maybe 30% of the companies that might have some success in that first experiment. And then maybe the next experiment will allow them to spend a little bit more money and understand more about that market. And as those companies' successes continue, we will invest more money. And eventually, hopefully, we'll find maybe 5 to 10% of our portfolio that will have outcomes of interesting returns, at least monetarily for us, and hopefully in terms of happy customers and jobs for the rest of our economy. So when we start thinking, we as investors now I'm talking about, start thinking about what does lean methodology mean to us, we think about probably 3 things: product, market, and revenue. And maybe we kind of move those into incubation, seed, and venture as the equivalent stages. We invest in lots of companies. We continue to iterate through those companies' successes. If they have successes, we'll continue to develop them. In the first stage, product validation, really, and small customer validation. Sometimes you don't even need any money here, but in many cases you might invest $25,000 to $100,000, or the entrepreneur might save some money or borrow from friends and family. There's a small number of people on the team, And the goal is really to develop some minimum viable product. By minimum viable product, we mean something that fucking works. It might be shitty, it might be cheap, but some number of customers will use it and might even pay for it, and they might not even be your mom. And our goal with this is really to understand, can the team build a functional product and get it out the door, and can they identify some number of customers who use or pay for the product? This is not traction in the traditional VC sense. This is simply functional use and modest number of customers. Now, again, that test, they will be able to get a functional product out, they will be able to get some small number of customers, and they might convince some other friends and family or some investors to give them some more money. And then we move to the next stage, which is really around market validation, sizing, and maybe some revenue testing. Now you might add a few more people to the team, you might add somebody in marketing and sales, you might put a little bit more money into the company, maybe hundreds of thousands, up to maybe $1 million or $2 million. You might have more professional investors getting involved, angel investors and seed. And the team's job is really now to expand their market opportunity, or at least test for how big that market might be, to start to test for whether the costs of customer acquisition can generate revenue that might offset that, ideally profitability, or at least the potential to be profitable in the future. And at least to understand how they acquire customers on a scalable basis, and maybe how they might make money on a scalable basis. So at the end of this experiment, this is not really building products so much as understanding customer acquisition cost and revenue generated, and starting to build a financial equation for that process, or to understand how to optimize that financial equation for future success. If the team can now prove to their investors or other people in the market that they can find a large market or find a profitable customer acquisition strategy, then they might progress to this stage, which is really where venture gets involved. And now we're talking about millions of dollars being invested, larger team, operationalizing the business, starting to really scale up product development and customer acquisition, and potentially even to start thinking about whether we are, in a potential exit or IPO opportunity. I'm simplifying a lot of things here, but if you think about each of these stages, what's going on is we are starting to get a little bit more scientific about how we invest in companies, and hopefully entrepreneurs are getting a little bit more scientific about how they build their businesses. This is fairly recent. This methodology about building companies and testing for market sizing, although the general theory has been available to offline businesses for many, many years, the ability to do this online at low cost and test quickly is a fairly new phenomenon that has really only existed in the last 5 to 10 years, arguably only in the last 5 years globally. And in many cases, we as investors have not changed our thinking about how we are investing in companies. Right now, a lot of the traditional venture structure is investing in companies, concentrating capital into a small number of companies, concentrating their time into board seats, and really digging deep in the companies. Now that is not necessarily a rational strategy after companies have established traction, after they have established that they have a product that is useful for customers, and those customers will pay for it and generate capital and scalable numbers. After that traction has been established, the traditional venture strategy is probably appropriate. Before that traction has been established, a different strategy is probably more appropriate. Some might call that spray and pray, some might call it quantitative investing, but in any case, we think that there is a strategy of applying a large number of bets in the early stages of the market where there's a high failure rate and a low cost to discover winners. So if you think about this product, market, and revenue strategy, I should mention in the last stage, it's not always revenue that we're optimizing for. There are companies like Snapchat and Instagram which may grow the user base for quite some time and never have any monetization strategy, or at least they may have a down the road monetization strategy. So you could be optimizing for growth, you could be optimizing for revenue, you could be optimizing for profitability. In case you are not accepting money from investors, you may want to optimize for profitability and bootstrap yourself to success. But what's interesting now about this is we can start to build ecosystems designed for helping this type of strategy come to market. So we might have a lot of incubation strategies or a lot of small experimentation strategies which are completely bootstrapped, really done on sweat equity or small amounts of capital, or really no amounts of capital whatsoever. But there are still critical skills which are involved. In general, those are engineering, design, and marketing. So engineering, the ability for people to code and produce an online product, design, the ability to sort of test for user experience and see whether people understand how to use that product. Could be both an online design experience as well as an offline experience. And then marketing, critically, this is the one that I think we overlook quite a bit. And I'm not talking about somebody who's very creative and flamboyant and writes a press release. What you're talking about is really much more scientific approach, much more online and analytically driven approach to discovering scalable and profitable methods of customer acquisition. Let me say that again. Scalable and hopefully profitable, at least eventually, channels for customer acquisition. That person is really trying to figure out in the equation of what it costs to build the company, what it costs to pay for inventory and have it on hand, what it costs to then deliver product to customers if there's any physical component, and then what is the timing of revenue coming in? Is it a subscription model? Is it a transaction model? Is it a lead generation model that's indirect? Is it a one-time transaction? Is it an ongoing lifetime series of transactions? So that person in marketing is not the traditional marketing person. And in general, the number of channels they have to think about is much, much different than ever before. We have channels for search, channels for social, channels for mobile, now channels for video and local messaging. There's lots of different ways that you can reach customers in the modern world. And we have lots of different geographies to reach those customers in. And again, the playing field is a little bit uneven here, but there's probably 2 to 3 billion people online right now. In another 5 years, we'll probably get close to 5 billion people online. And in many of those geographies, we'll also have the ability to pay, and they'll also have access to tablets and smartphones and things that are very traditional development techniques that we think about right now. We also have all these other platforms for discovery of the startups and the investors. So the advent of professional platforms like LinkedIn and McClure and investment platforms like AngelList and others are now giving us access to companies where they might not be right around the corner, they might not be in Northern California, they could be all over the world. Case in point, we discovered a company called Farmeron by using AngelList. The company was out of Croatia. In fact, it was a very unsexy company that was measuring web analytics for dairy farmers, basically milk production for cows. This is not what you would typically call a technology company, but it was a very useful company that helped solve milk production optimization for dairy farmers. Might not sound very sexy to you, but there are a lot of dairy farmers in the world, and making sure that you measure which cows are producing and that they are healthy, and having a strategy for doing that that's easy is actually worth something to a lot of dairy farmers. It might be worth between $100 to $1,000 a month. There might be thousands, even like single-digit millions of those dairy farmers. So we're able to discover companies that solve interesting problems that you wouldn't necessarily think of as technology problems. And those companies could be all over the world, the investors could be all over the world. Now, one point about messaging and all these different platforms. I'm guessing you guys probably know at least a few of the icons on the far right. Second icon from the top right, do you guys know what that is? What is it? WhatsApp, yes, correct. Do you know what the top one is? WeChat. Now, those companies are having probably between 200 to 400 million users in about 2 or 3 years. Ridiculous growth. Not listed on there is Snapchat, which recently turned down $3 or $4 billion offers from Facebook and Google, supposedly. So all these different platforms, are ways to reach customers. We have not really thought about how to reach those customers as traditional marketing strategies for startups. In particular, customer acquisition platforms that have over 100 million users are really, really interesting. At least for the US markets, Google, Facebook, and Twitter are kind of our search and social platforms. Apple and Android are mobile platforms. There are other choices as you go to other countries. But we're starting to see global platforms emerge that have hundreds of millions of users and will have billions of users if they don't already have those. So these are relatively new channels. Actually, the communication and media channels and mobile channels didn't exist more than 5 to 7 years ago. So the number of people who are experienced marketers and customer acquisition experts on these channels, very limited, very new. And yet most of humanity is going to be using those platforms probably within another 5 years. Already a third of humanity is using those platforms. So we think in terms of like technology, but actually what we should be thinking of is in terms of human behavior and human psychology. There's an incredible shift in user behavior from watching traditional television and reading traditional print magazines to online behaviors and online models. We are spending a tremendous amount of time on those online models. In Saudi Arabia, people watch more YouTube than they watch television. I guarantee you, in Southeast Asia and a lot of places, people do more online messaging than they read newspapers. This is not how the world used to look 10 years ago. In another 5 to 10 years, it will look a lot even more different as we start to get payment methods of delivery and logistics online. So, traditionally we've thought about a lot of the markets that make a difference being US-focused markets and Western European markets, maybe in a few cases, some Far East markets like Japan and Korea. But we're going to start seeing a much more broad acquisition pattern of customers all over the world. In particular, we're going to see interesting markets develop, in my opinion, around 4 popular languages: English, Mandarin, Spanish, and Arabic. So first language speakers of English, probably about 1 billion speakers. Second language speakers of English, probably another 1 to 2 billion speakers and growing. Mandarin, probably 1 billion speakers, maybe not much growth on that, but still quite a lot of economic growth in those Mandarin speakers. Spanish and Arabic, probably 300 to 500 million speakers. Both of those populations, very young, growing quite a bit. Internet penetration rising, smartphone penetration rising among those people. Those 4 language platforms will have very large audiences around the world. Now there will be other language platforms that are also interesting, where you have 50 to 100 million speakers in a country that might have high GDP. So countries like Russia, Japan, Korea, Germany, also interesting. Brazil, at some scale, also interesting. But really, I think you'll see that these 4 languages have the potential to be billion speaker languages or more. And you'll probably see a predominant amount of activity in English, but in those other 3 as well. Other critical factors, obviously education is critical, but I think the ways that we think about education will start to change. In fact, already a lot of education is being delivered online, a lot of entrepreneurship education is being delivered online. We will not think about traditional institutional education coming from universities or MBA programs. More and more it will come online, it will come from all over the world. The best teachers in those best languages will become celebrities and become paid very well. And the platforms that deliver that content will also be interesting platforms. As we start to see capital availability and incubation and seed and Series A around the world, we will fill in the rest of that ecosystem. Right now, still very challenging to raise Series A in certain countries. Brazil, 200 million people in that country, probably 4 Series A funds that are active in the country. India, a nation of 1 billion people, maybe 6 to 7 Series A funds. Mexico, a country of 100 million people, maybe servicing a language market of 200 to 300 million Spanish speakers, perhaps 2 or 3 Series A funds. So still relatively underfunded, lack of capital availability for very, very large markets. That will change. Even though a lot of people think about there's too many venture capitalists in the US, probably a lot of them not so good at their jobs, we're still going to see a lot more filling in of venture capital across the globe. And even though there's probably too many incubators and accelerators out there, and too many of them that are not very good, again, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. We don't really think about, are there too many MBA programs, are there too many business schools out there, even though maybe we should. But the predominance of incubators and accelerators in probably at least the top 50 to 100 major metropolitan cities around the world, certainly no worse until we get to the number, an equivalent number of business schools around the world. Other positive macro trends. Again, I mentioned before, payments and online payment distribution still probably below 50% in 2/3 of the world. So whether it's credit cards or banking methods or other online payment methods, probably in the next 3 to 5 years you'll see that tip above 50% in many markets, and that will dramatically change the monetization capability of startups and dramatically change capital formation in those markets. Logistics and delivery also got to get better in probably a good 2/3 of the world, and mobile web, smartphone distribution still not maybe above 30% penetration in many emerging markets. We also have growing middle class, more luxury spending, a lot better online distribution methods like what I talked about before. As all these things improve improve, you'll see improving performance of companies and probably investors as well. So there's optimism that the percentage chances of startups surviving will get better, not just in the US market, but particularly in international markets where those figures are getting better. I haven't mentioned other things like other platforms emerging, but if you think about automobiles being potential internet platforms, gaming platforms, wearable computing, the proliferation of technology, not just among young people, but also among old people. My wife's grandmother is 92 and lives in Japan, but we Skype her video and our kids get to talk to them. So in a lot of cases, grandchildren are the killer application for the elder generation of society. But there are lots of other things that we can deliver as services, and as a greater percentage of the population becomes older, that becomes a completely different and interesting market. The proliferation of people traveling around the world, so lots of wealthy people who are maybe the top 5 to 10% of Chinese and Indian travelers will be going to other places around the world. It sounds crazy to think about maybe taking your hotel that's in the Midwest in the US and translating that into Chinese, but I guarantee you that that will be a successful strategy for people down the road, and probably all over the world. So I'm done with my comments. I generally want to impress upon you a couple of things. One, the costs of building software companies, or at least the experiments in the first few years, are lower than ever before. The ability to access customers around the world is greater than ever before, and even though it's not always free, it's more measurable than ever before. The opportunity for other core metrics in payments and in distribution are going to get better in the next 5 to 10 years in places that we didn't used to think about as being interesting economic markets. There will be several languages that will proliferate online. It would be useful for you to pay attention to at least the largest three. And lastly, even though the failure rate of startups is still high because of all those other factors, the opportunity to build successful businesses using internet and mobile platforms is going to continue to increase, and the opportunity to be investors and entrepreneurs in those businesses will continue to pay off better and better. So I hope you go out there and fail and learn something on a very cheap budget, and maybe some of you will be successful in not failing and building a couple of great businesses. Thank you very much.